Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. A good Erev Shabbos Kodesh. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Vayishlach. Shabbos is Yutes Kislev, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, and the Chag HaGeula of the Alter Rebbe. And we wish already each other L'shana tova b'limud achsidus u'b'darkei achsidus tikasevu v'sichasemu. So we have to talk about a lesson of the week, and these days our hearts and minds are with our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. So we're adding with tzedakah these days, in addition to the usual prayer and Torah, al shleisha dvarim ha'olam moimed, al ha'Torah, v'al ha'avodah, v'al gvulas chasadim. So here we're giving charity that all our brothers and sisters should be safe in Eretz Yisrael, all the houses should be safe, and the war should be over now. Let's say a prayer, and this prayer is connected to Yutes Kislev. As everyone knows, this is Kapitel Nun Hey, and the Pasuk, which is connected to Yutes Kislev and all of the holidays, Chag HaGeula of Chabad. And that Pasuk is Podo B'Sholem Nafshi Mikrov li ki berabim hoyu imodi. He redeemed my soul in peace from battles against me because of the many who were with me. So, this is what David HaMelech says, and this verse the Alter Rebbe was reciting when he was redeemed. He was notified of his redemption and liberation. So all of the Hasidic discourses throughout the years, many, from all the leaders of Chabad, the Rebbes, have started very deep and profound Hasidic Torah discourses on this verse of Podda b'sholim nafshi, my soul was redeemed in peace. And Chassidus discusses, what does that mean that my soul is redeemed in peace? Two elements, two components that represent the ultimate redemption and liberation. Number one is that the one who is redeemed didn't become diminished at all. Like it says in this week's Parsha, Vayove Yaakov Sholem, he was whole, he was complete, he was intact. And not only didn't he become lower, didn't he become diminished, there's no wounds, there's no casualties, but on the contrary, he became stronger. So that's the first point. Of Poda B'Sholem Nafshi, the peace is in such a way that you're not affected whatsoever. And the second point is that you don't have to, the foe becomes a friend. There's a transformation. Not that you have to overpower him, not that you have to annihilate, not that you have to eliminate, but it's through illumination, through influence, not through power, so to speak, as we'll discuss. So that was the prayer, and we're praying that so too in Eretz Yisrael right now. It should be Pod b'Sholem Nafshi Mikrov li ki berabim hoyemodi, which is a medrash that says, what does it mean ki berabim hoyemodi? The majority were with me. That means that the opposition itself saw the just and the righteousness of the cause of David. In this case, we're talking about the entire world should recognize the moral correctness of the Eretz Yisrael. Let's go to this week's Parsha. Everyone knows the story of Parshas Vayishlach. Is the story of the confrontation between Yaakov and Esav and how everything becomes reconciled. Baruch Hashem. So the Parsha starts off that Yaakov was on the run. He had to leave his house 34 years ago when he took the brachas from Yitzchak that Esav felt belongs to him. And then he learned for 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever, and then he worked for 20 years by Lavan. So it's 34 years later, and now they're finally going to meet. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim. He sent the malachim, the angels, to Esav to scout and to try to appease him. But at the beginning of the Parsha, as Rashi says, that part of the message that he gave to the angels was Bonu el achicha, el Esav, Sheyisa oimer achihu. Yaakov went with the approach that he's my brother. Aval hu noegimcha ke Esav arasha imach. Esav is acting to you like an enemy. So at the beginning of the Parsha, Esav is still full of hatred, and he's coming towards Yaakov with 400 men. And it seems like there's going to be a major battle. And then Yaakov meets up with an angel, and according to the Zohar, Primis HaTorah, he has a victory over the angel of Esav. So he achieved this victory on a celestial level, and then following that comes how Yaakov will be victorious, so to speak, with Esav on the physical realm. And then afterwards it says that Yaakov bowed down to Esav, and then the pasuk says, Vayoratz Esav l'krosei, Esav runs towards Yaakov, v'chapkeu, and he embraced him, vayipal al tzavorav, and he fell on his neck, vayishakeu, vayivku, and he kissed him, and they wept. So over here Rashi says, vaychapkeu, and he embraced him. His galgalu rachma of Esav's mercy tumbled forth, kisheru mishtachu, and he saw Yaakov bowing, kol ishtachvois halolu. I'm not going to get into it now. I think we once spoke about it. The commentators speak. Some say that this was not really the right way of Yaakov to act. We're not going to talk about that now, but in the positive sense, and we spoke about this, the Hasidic interpretation is it's a lower level where the higher influencer has to lower themselves. We'll talk about that today. But in any case, in plain English, when the opposition saw that there was respect from the other side towards them, and that the other had no animosity and had no hatred and was just projecting respect and love and warmth, so it won over Esav. And then Rashi says that he kissed him, and this pasuk Vayishakeu, there's a dot in the Sefer Torah on every single letter. So Rashi brings as an argument, why is there a dot on the word that he kissed him? One opinion is that the reason why it says a dot on the word is Shalei Neshake B'chol Liboy. It's meant to say, be suspect. When it says over here that he kissed him, it doesn't really mean that he meant it. That's one interpretation. But then there's another interpretation. Reb Shimon bar Yochai said, Halachahi, it's a given fact, B'yadur she'Esav sein el Yaakov, that Esav hates Yaakov, el shenichmeru rachmav, but his mercy was warmed, Vayishlach, at that time, on the Shakeh B'chol Libo, and he kissed him with all his heart. So this is the irony of Reb Shimon bar Yochai, who's stating on the one hand that the Esav is an anti-Semite, he hates Yaakov, but at the same time over here, and this is why it's a dot on every letter in this pasuk, because this time is the exception. Vayishakeo, he kissed him truthfully, and that's why the pasuk says it, because this time there was an exception to the rule that even though there's an Esav that is son of Yaakov, but this time his mercy came out and they kissed, and it was a true kiss. According to the first opinion, Esav actually wanted to bite Yaakov. Yaakov's neck turned into stone, and then Esav lost a couple of teeth, etc. But according to the second opinion, it means that he actually really kissed him. So there's a Rashi Sikha. What I'm going to say now is connected to a Rashi Sikha. There's one Sikha in Chelik Chaf, and there's another Sikha in Chelik Chafei. One is the Sikha of Rashi Sikha, the other is on V'Yaakov Shalom, and primarily it's going to be based on a Sikha which is Bilti Muga, unedited, of Vayishlach Tavshem Mem Gimel, as we will discuss. So, we are not going to get into the major subjects of anti-Semitism, and I wanted to speak about it, and maybe we will speak about it in the next coming weeks. We're going to speak about what this means primarily in our service of Avodas Hashem. As usual, Chassidus emphasizes the inner struggle, the inner Gentile, the inner opposition. And how do we deal with it? And what is the lesson we learn from Rashi in our personal challenges and struggles in becoming better? So over here the Rebbe says, Amoyri de Kipshat. That Rashi over here is talking about two levels. There's two levels of dealing with your Yetzer Hara, with your evil inclination. There's one level where it's iskafia, which means subduing and suppressing and subjugating. And there's another level which is called ishapcha, which means transformation. So the Rebbe says like this, in the first level, according to the first opinion of Rashi, what happens over here with your opposition is that he doesn't really want to kiss you. He's not in it really. He's not really excited about it. He doesn't really want it. He just does it because he has no choice. And in the service of Hashem, when we deal with iskafia, just to give you an example, what's the difference between iskafia, subduing your evil inclination, or transforming? So let's take, for example, the difference between a Jew during the week and a Jew during Shabbos. That's very clear. During the week, you're in the workforce, you're on Wall Street, you're in Beverly Hills, wherever you are, Paris, London. You have an office, you deal with clients, you're in the mundane world. For lack of a better word, we can call it the rat race, or the cutthroat environment. There's competition, there's stealers, there's thieves, and it's very, very hard for a person to retain his level of integrity and honesty in such a world. And therefore, we say, Kol hadrachim b'cheskes hakana. When a Jew is in the workforce, there's already a danger. There's temptations. It's not like when you're in shul, davening and learning. When you're in a spiritual environment, you're in the opposite. You're in the world of Tom, Dick, and Harry. So that's over there. When you're dealing with your nefesh habahamis, when you're dealing with your Yetzer Hara, we have to be told, V'lo yisosuru achar levavchem v'achar neichem asher atem zoynim achareihem. There's always temptations, and you have to be on guard and don't fall because of the temptations. That's the level of a skafia. So the dog is barking. Your animal soul could be enraged, stimulated, and aroused, but you don't let it express itself. You keep it contained. That's called the skafia, as the Alter Rebbe discussed at length, the struggle of the Beinoni, the main character of the Tanya. Then there's a higher level, the second level over here of Esav. But listen carefully. In this second level, there's going to be two steps. The beginning of it and the ultimate of it. The beginning of it is in this week's parasha. The beginning of the ultimate redemption of when Mashiach comes, where a large proportion of the Gentile world will be Oz Efech Elamim. There'll be Gentiles, the righteous Gentiles, the ones who are going to be channeled in the right direction, where they are going to reach in their world a level of Ishapcha, and concerning the world in general, will have reached the level of Ishapcha. When did it start? In this second Pirush on Rashi, where Esav kisses Yaakov. But where Esav kisses Yaakov in this Rashi, and this is the Chiddush that the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is saying, that even if there's a situation of a Goy, a Gentile who could be an anti-Semite, but nevertheless, he also can kiss Yaakov. He also can come to truth. So just for a second, let me just make it clear. There is a level of an anti-Semite when we speak about a Haman and a Molech, where we can't talk to them. Those are sociopaths, psychopaths. They just want to kill you, and they have to be eradicated. What can we do? That's one level of an anti-Semite. I don't have any better word for it except that's an anti-Semite who is deranged. Then we can call it an anti-Semite, we can call it a mild anti-Semite. Whenever something happens, it's always the Jews' fault. As we saw with the Jenin massacre a couple of years ago, it wasn't a massacre. It was a fake story. The same thing happened with the flotilla ship, and so on and so forth. Get the Montek and Donishtik. Whenever there's a story that happens, what happened right now, the whole world was blaming Israel because they blew up the hospital. When in actuality, it was a rocket that was fired by Hamas. So in other words, that's what we mean. We say the world, and as it's that sort of anti-Semitism, where if they'll see a confrontation or a dispute between the Jew and the non-Jew, they right away blame the Jew. So these are people that are misinformed, they're ignorant, but once they would see the light, once they would see the truth, then even if they might still have this condition of mild anti-Semitism, as we'll discuss maybe in another shir, but nevertheless it wouldn't be harmful. Because like it could be in this case, where at that time Esav sincerely kisses Yaakov. And the pshat over here is that Esav changes. There's a transformation emotionally. In the beginning of the week's parasha, Esav is an enemy and is coming to kill Yaakov. That's the beginning of the parasha. But later on, Esav has a change of heart. And that's why, as it says later, he forgives Yaakov that he got the brachas, and he says the words which would be so beautiful the world would say it right now. Vayemer Esav yesh li rov, I have plenty. Ochi, my brother. So first he says, I'm not jealous anymore. I have a lot. And he calls him his brother. And he says, Yihi l'cho ashaloch. Let what you have remain yours. And this is really the story that's going on right now with Eretz Yisrael. What do the Yidden have? A sliver of land compared to all the land which is around them for hundreds and hundreds of miles. But no, the world can forget that we have our sliver. And this is the parasha where Esav says, I have enough and you can have what you want. So there was a change of heart. There was a real transformation. But it isn't Mashiach. And therefore they had to part ways. And as Rashi says himself, when he speaks about the change of heart of Esav, Rashi says, temporarily, in this encounter, Esav had a transformation, a change of heart, and he meant it seriously when he gave him the kiss. But it's not the ultimate. And what's going to be the ultimate? The ultimate is the pasuk we say in this week's Haftarah, Va'olu Moshiim b'Hatziyah in Lishbet Esav, V'hoisol Adinoi HaMelucho. We say it every single day before Yishtabach, and it's the last pasuk of this week's Haftarah. And the Rebbe over here says, Amoyed the Kapshat, that it's two levels. There's Va'olu Moshiim b'Hatziyah in Lishbet. Oh, I forgot to explain this hapcha. Transformation. Okay, transformation is like Shabbos, which there's no threat. The world is not a threat. Your Yetzirah, your animal soul, we don't have to tell it so much, because what's Shabbos? Shabbos is Lashem. You're in a higher reality, you're in spirituality, you're in holiness. So therefore, it's not that you're struggling and there's a threat, or you're threatened by worldly things. You're in a higher reality. Now let's go back to the Haftarah. There's one stage which is Iskafia, where the Gentiles have to be judged. It's a lishpeit situation. There's tension, there's friction, there's an enemy, and they did things wrong, and therefore they have to be judged. We're going to influence them to do the right thing, but it's not really an inner transformation. At this time, they have to be brought to justice, and the judge will set them right and show them the error of their ways. But it's the first step. It's only a skafia. They're subjugated. They're being suppressed. But they're going along. But then comes V'hoisal Hashem Amlucha, the higher level. There's only Elikus, there's only the Eibishter. All of the nations, Hashem, Hashem Echad, Shmei Echad, the entire world cries out that there's only Hashem, and Hashem is the only reality, and it's coming from within. When you say true reform, means that becomes your geschmack, that becomes your enjoyment, that becomes your will. There's no part of you which is not permeated with that idea. And that gets back to the word of Pod B'Sholim Nafshi, through Chassidus and through the power of Chassidus, because we know the inside of every single thing, we're able to touch the core of every single thing and to reveal the godliness in it and show the redemptive angle. And the Rebbe in the Sikha, he talks about it, that the Shimon Bar Yochai is the one who said it, and Rashi brings down his opinion. And why Reb Shimon Bar Yochai? Because Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was a Melumed B'Nissim, he was able to make miracles. The Rebbe in the Sikha doesn't connect it with the idea that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is also the one who revealed the secrets of the Torah. And like we mentioned many times, the Hayom Yom, which says that Oir and Roz have the same numerical value, which is 207, because once you know the Roz of something, once you know the inside story, the spark, the soul of anything, then Oir can be lichtig machen. So that was Primus HaTorah. We always find that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who brought healing to the world. That's the whole idea of the Zohar, to illuminate, not to eliminate. And that's why we have the story of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, where he told his son to go get blessings, and it seemed like it was curses, and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai showed how they were all blessings. And that's always the idea of Pnimius HaTorah and Chassidus. It's all about illumination, and therefore the power of transformation and healing, and always seeing the redemptive angle and the good. Now let's talk about Yutes Kislev. I want to say 3 points. The first point is, similar to what's going on in this week's parasha Vayishlach, the direct connection is that there's a letter of the Alter Rebbe where he writes that Hifli v'higdil, that the Eibishter made the miracles of the story of Yitzhak Kislev, that the Alter Rebbe was exonerated in the eyes of all the royalty and all the princes and the Tsar and all the dignitaries, and therefore brought out an unbelievable Kiddush Hashem, and that everyone saw Me'ez Hashem Hoysezos. So the Alter Rebbe writes a couple of lines in a letter talking about his redemption, how this was a miracle for the Gentiles. And this is an essential part of the story, that the Gentiles understand, similar to what's going to happen to when Mashiach comes. That's what Alter Rebbe revealed with his imprisonment, and how they came to realize the greatness of the Alter Rebbe and the beauty and the depth of what the Torah Chassidus was all about, and how it was completely innocent. Now, one story of the Alter Rebbe, which is not such a known story, is that after the Alter Rebbe was redeemed from prison, I don't know if it happened right then and there when the Alter Rebbe was leaving prison, but some of his followers found a note of the Alter Rebbe. We had written the pasuk of Psalms, Sorim yidafuni chinam umidvarcha pochad libi. And the Rebbe explained by a talk of Yutas Kislev Tafshin Lamed Daled that what is the literal meaning of the pasuk? Sorim yidafuni chinam. David HaMelech said there were princes, people that were chasing me for nothing. In other words, I was innocent, and they were just chasing me. And chinam, for nothing, which means like he's not scared of that. But umidvarcha pochad libi. From your word, from Hashem's word, that's what I fear. So David HaMelech is saying, the truth is, I'm not worried about everything that's going to happen right now, what's happening in the physical world. I have to look inside myself to see what the spiritual reason this is all happening. And this is what the Alter Rebbe was saying, of course. And as it's talked about in the talks of the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe all over, the story of Yitzhak Kislev was mirroring things that were happening in the spiritual realm. That for whatever reason, there was opposition at that time for the full revelation of the secrets of the Torah. We're not going to get into the whole story now. And the Alter Rebbe had to dig deeper inside of himself to demand from himself more, or to put it in different words, he had to have self-sacrifice, Mesiras Nefesh. And he demanded from himself more. And because he demanded from himself more, and he reached a deeper level of his soul, then he was able to be triumphant. And this is a message to every single one of us. And it's including what's going on right now in Eretz Yisrael. There's the soldiers that have to go in Gaza, and they have to go into tunnels, and Hashem Yishmor. Hashem should guard every single one of them. But then there's every single one of us that's not in Eretz Yisrael. We have to also fight a war. Our struggle. The war. From my battle, from my inner struggle, between my Yetzer Tov and my Yetzer Hara, between my Nefesh Alikis and my Nefesh Bahamas. So we have to know that it starts from me, from my world. Where in my world am I struggling and I'm letting the other side win? And where in my world am I fighting the struggle to overcome whatever resistance is preventing me from reaching further and going higher? And if we think about this pasuk, and this is the message the Rebbe explains from the story, that you have to realize, whatever problems I'm having is not really the real story. I don't have to worry about the physical reality and what's happening. What I really have to worry about is am I doing everything of Hashem's words? If I will fix up the midvarcha pachad libi, then the other things that are happening in the physical realm will work out. So that's the message each and every single one of us has to be taking, especially now in the time of war in Eretz Yisrael. Every single one of us has to look inside ourselves to be victorious, and it should be victorious in a way of Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. The more Chassidus you're going to learn, the more you'll be able to be redeemed and overcome whatever struggles you have in your personal development. Then there's another famous story, which is one part of the story everyone knows, but there's another part of the story which the Rebbe once spoke about differently than what's usual. And that's the story, and it's also relevant to this discussion about Gentiles, that the Alter Rebbe was interrogated in front of all these religious leaders, like Christian, Catholic, Russia, and whatever, dukes and barons and whatever was in the Russian system, and the Tsar. And they had asked him 22 questions. And he answered all the questions. Then they asked him a 23rd question. And this question was, is it true that you wrote at the end of chapter 1 in the Tanya that all the kindness that non-Jews do, Gentiles do, is selfish? It's not really good. Obviously, the Alter Rebbe, whoever knows Tanya, at the end of chapter 1, he quotes from a Talmud in Bava Basra and from a Zohar, where it says those words. So it's not the Alter Rebbe's invention. It's a Gemara and it's a Zohar. See there. And they asked him, is it true what you wrote over there? Is that true? Like, in other words, explain it. Are you saying that all Gentiles, their kindness is coming from selfish reasons? And the way the story goes, the way it's written, and the way it was told to us by the Friedrich Rebbe is, the Alter Rebbe just smiled. But he didn't answer their question. And the way the Pshat, if I remember correctly, the way it's written in the talks of the Friedrich Rebbe was, the smile was meant to say, hello, I answered all the questions previously, b'tuv tam v'das, eloquently, logically. So do you really want me to explain this to you? I should explain to you why Goyim are connected to Sholosh Klippos HaTmeis? So basically, he left it at that. He smiled at them. They got the message that basically they'd rather that the Alter Rebbe shouldn't explain it to them. Okay, because in other words, it would be exposing the ugly truth about them. That's one pirush in the story. But the Rebbe repeated the story one year in the Yitzis Kislev, and he repeated it with a different meaning. And that is that the Alter Rebbe knew that this was a serious time. There was accusations. There were judgments. What's called dinim. At that time, there was a time of judgment, severities, decree, so to speak, against the Alter Rebbe. And in a natural state, there was now a question of treason and the worst sort of verdict about the Alter Rebbe's very life. So the Alter Rebbe needed to be mamtik dinim. He wanted to sweeten dinim, so he smiled, and this was something which is an Indian of simcha, and simcha is put together, it breaks boundaries, and simcha is also mamtik dinim. Joy could change a situation with its negativity into positivity, because what you do down here becomes mirrored up there. So this story is very, very powerful in many ways. First of all, right now we have to stress simcha. We're coming to Shabbos, Yutes Kislev, Chag HaGeula, and Sunday is also Chav Kislev connected to Chag HaGeula. So we have to be moisef in simcha. We have to remember it's a Chag HaGeula. The Jews will always be victorious. So we do have to emphasize the simcha, and simcha brings geula. And I would like to think that both interpretations of the story go hand in hand. In other words, the first explanation is, do you really want us to explain how everything is fake news and everything is lies and alilas dam? And then it goes on and on and on. It just doesn't make sense how people fall for it. But it goes together also with the second explanation, that, when it comes to some people and some opposition, the only thing you can do is just smile. What I mean to say smile, of course, we're not talking about if he has a gun pointed at you. But what I mean to say is just smile, and that'll take care of the situation. In other words, don't let it get to you. It's not worth it. Don't let something upset you. Don't let something disturb you. Keep on doing what you know is the right way. Smile. And that'll be mamtik the dinim. The Eibusha should help that from this geula of Yutes Kislev and the beginning of the transformation of Esav, that he agrees to everything. And like it says in this week's Torah, V'olam Meishim Ba'atzion, Lishbit es Esav, V'hoisel Hashem Amlucha. From this Gula of Yutes Kislev and this Yontiv, we should come to the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Miyad, Mamish. Good Yontiv, good Shabbos. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, your man in Melbourne.